Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 on how to build an invert roller speargun. Today I'm wearing a shirt because a lot of my friends told me that I look like a chav in the previous video, part 1. So trying to look a bit better for you. Today we're gonna walk you through, in the part 1 we look at the components that we're gonna be using, and today we will show you basically how to get to this stage. So this is the final product minus the rubbers. So today we'll show you how to build the main body of the gun. Also how to rig it, all the pulleys, etc. And we are not going to cover how to rig the shooting line because you should know that already. If you're looking to build an invert roller, it's probably because you have some experience already. Also, we're not gonna dwell a lot on how to tie bands. I show you how to do one, but I mean there's a million videos out there on how to tie bands and how to rig your spear. Also because obviously we're using mono here, but you can use Dyneema, whatever you actually like for it. So this is the what we're gonna be actually doing today. Done. Okay, so starting with the handle. Hermes provides an instruction on basically where to move the O-ring in order to fit the handle to two different inner diameter tubes. 26 or 26.5 comes with the O-ring, and long story short, you put the O-ring on the front if the ID is 26.5, or on the rear slot if it's 26 mil. So we need to check the ID of our barrel. We know it's 26. There we go, bang on 26. So our O-ring needs to be on the rear slot, right here. But before we do that, Hermes also warns you that the grooves that you can see here in this part of the insert are actually calibrated to 26.5. So we need to remove those, otherwise it will not fit in our tube. To demonstrate that, you will see that the initial section is 26 mil. We can fit that, but as soon as we get to the grooves, it just doesn't move anymore. So we need to remove these grooves in order to fit the handle into the barrel. To do that, we just need a small hand file, sanding sponge or sanding paper, whatever you have, the handle, and obviously the tube. The idea is remove as least materials as possible. Don't overdo it, because you cannot add material. So let's crack on. Good, so we just finished taking the preset fins off with the file, so that's a bit of a coarse job. And now we're gonna use the sponge just to get rid of any burrs or remaining pieces of plastic that might get stuck in the tube. That's it. And now let's do a fit trial. Like a glove. There we go. Just to align the handle, very easy, just use the spear. So put the spear in. There we go. And you can look on the side of it and twist slightly the handle until it's perfectly aligned. Take it out. And then you can use the molding line in the handle to mark the middle there in the barrel. Why is that important? Because now we're gonna have to take off the handle and pre-drill 2 holes for the retaining screws that need to fit there and there. Right, with everything aligned, now we're gonna use our template. We have marked both holes center with the center mold of the handle. The mark there, we're gonna be using as retaining screws, these ones, stainless steel, dome-headed stud or Phillips, whatever, depending on where in the world you are. So let's make the holes. Both pilot holes. Buff it a bit with sandpaper to get rid of any burrs, and then we screw them in. So retaining screws already in place. I always try to file a bit the top and use a bit of sanding sponge just to make sure that everything is super smooth, because the rubbers are going to be working in this area. We don't want to nick or cut any rubbers. To make sure that everything is nicely aligned, we just use the shaft, as we said before, or spear, depending on where in the world you are. Everything seems to align perfectly fine. And we're good to go. Handle in place. Right, now for the muzzle, remember that we're gonna follow the same procedure as before. The retaining screw needs to be ahead of the O-ring, obviously, otherwise you're gonna have a leak in the inside the barrel, which is gonna affect buoyancy. And talking about buoyancy, very important, I have prepared already inside the barrel, you can see there, we have put some lead to ballast the front of the barrel. Why? That's another advantage of carbon barrels. They're so light and they have so much buoyancy that you can actually ballast and put extra weight in any part of the gun that you want to keep it perfectly neutrally buoyant in the water. Samantha likes a slightly nose heavy spear gun, so we have put 150 grams of lead inside, as I show you, and that stays behind the muzzle. You can use T1000 or any epoxy adhesive to keep them in there. That's gonna make the gun underwater almost neutrally buoyant, slightly muzzle heavy, which is what we're looking for. To align the muzzle, we're just gonna put it in. I like to use a small section of spear, cut spear, makes the job easier, or you can use the shaft that you bought in the shop. So that is now perfectly aligned, and we're good to drill the hole, fit the O-ring, bit of silicone spray, and we're good to go. Mono with the right size crimp. We like to put it in the back, so basically it's just more streamlined and it's easier to get it out of the fish if you go all the way through. In terms of the front, it's just the same. Basically, we attach it to the bungee. But the other reason I'm doing this section of the video is to show you how this little hook works here. So that is locked. We're gonna go, that's why that groove needs to be cut there in the muzzle, just to catch the mono. We're gonna go over, and this is a double wrap gun on the hook that we made before and back. So that gives us a double wrap, which is a good idea because this gun has a lot of power and a lot of range. Very neat, personal preference. You can put everything under the cuttlefish, so you have a very clean line of sight. That's it. Right, now I'm gonna show you how do we prepare the rubbers. As we mentioned in the first video, we're gonna have 3 pairs of rubbers. 2 of them are gonna be constantly pre-tensioned to keep all the system in place. And then we're gonna have phase 2 and phase 3. And the end product per size, so per side in the gun is gonna be this, basically. We're looking to do this. We need to have 3 bands attached to the secondary pulley. One of them is gonna have a permanent anchor kind of wishbone, and the other 2 are gonna have traditional wishbones. We'll show you that later, But before we go into that, I just wanted to take you step by step on how did we build this, which is basically the three faces to load the gun. We're using for the whole project inserts. If you want to use knots and normal bridles, you can do that. We're using inserts because it's easier to extend and contract things if one band is longer than the other one, etc. These are super cool, super cheap. You just shove them in, tie the band as you would any other band, and that's it basically. Then you can basically thread the Dyneema through there, make a knot, and everything gets super taut like that. We're gonna show you now how to tie one of the bands. This whole thing has been prepared now. These two will go in there, and we're gonna now prepare the very last one and show you how do we do that. And the end product should be this. So this is how these inserts work. You just put the Dyneema through it. After you basically anchored it with an overhand knot, you burn the end obviously as usual on the pulley. Put it very taut at the end there, then do an overhand knot, tighten it up, burn the end, and that's pretty much it. That's all you need to do. Just like that. And then you end up basically with the three inserts already anchored to your pulley. So now with all the inserts ready in our pulley, we're gonna show you how to put the inserts in. This is very simple. Just put some water or lubricant there, push in, and then you tie the band around that constriction basically that you can see here, and that will hold everything in place. We'll show you now how to tie one band. The purpose of this video is not to show you that. If you've been spearfishing for some time, you should know how to tie your bands and how to rig your shooting line, okay? There's a million videos on YouTube out there. Right, here's very quickly how you tie the bands. Use a small vise just to hold the line. We're using the same 1.8 mil Dyneema. I think it's 16 braid sheath that we're using for this. You do a cloth hitch knot, one way like that, the other loop like that. You need an entry basically, shove everything through there. So that's your club hitch there. The reason why we use club hitch and not a constrictor knot is because you can roll the knot through it. You're gonna bring it as close as possible to the collar of the band, tighten it a bit. Very tight and as close as possible to the collar. There we go, and once you have it there, you just wrap the line on something so you can tie it with a lot of strength and roll it until basically it doesn't go anymore. That's it. Cut it 1 centimeter, one centimeter in the other tail. Fluff it up, burn it. Dyneema burns super nicely, goes all the way back. Squish it a bit. And that's that. You need to do that a good 12 times for this project. Right, so a small mention about the size of the rubbers. There's like endless forum discussions there about how long or short they should be, etc. The reality is that all your fine calculations about how long the rubber bands should be, everything's gonna go out of the window after the first use, because bands will stretch over time, they lose strength, etc. So let's go with a rule of thumb. Go for 300% stretch. So that's why we try to keep all this rigging as short as possible. So basically, remember that the stretch of the band is calculated not from the furthermost ends, but behind the tying knot. So basically, this is the amount of rubber band that we have available to pull and to produce energy. If you put these ones as a reference, they're all the same size, by the way. There, this is gonna have a bit of pre-stretch like that, and we're gonna go, that's what I'm telling you, 300%, 100, 200, 300, mark it in the barrel, and that is the length of your band. I will show you now how to rig the, not the shooting line, but the pulleys line, the energy line. Right, now to the power line, that's the word I was looking for before. For this particular project and this application, we're gonna be using 3mm 8 braid Dyneema. Why? Because it's very flexible, very bendy. It really likes to run through the pulleys, very abrasion resistant and super strong. So this is gonna last you a couple of years in this rigging. The color I choose is black, so it blends with the gun well, and also make sure that the color of the Dyneema you use is different to the shooting line. So if you have a bit of a cluster on the water after shooting a fish, you can very quickly identify which is your shooting line versus the power lines. In terms of length, if you need to buy this, just go 5 times the length of the barrel. So this is a 90 centimeters, and we have here like 4.5 or 5 meters of Dyneema. Right, so now I explain to you very briefly how the system works. This hole here is your anchor point. The rope will basically the Dyneema line, sorry, will be statically anchored there. We'll show you in a second how to do it. From here, it's gonna go all the way back to the secondary pulley, come around over the primary pulley, and all the way back. This is your driving line for the shaft. This will be attached to the shaft. And as you can see, it's basically a simple pulley system. For every 10 centimeters that you move in the bottom of the system, you move 20 centimeters at the top. That's what gives this gun the power, basically, over a regular setup. Right, so to anchor, we're gonna start from the static anchor point, as I explained before. To do that, we're going to put the power line through it, find the middle point of this line of your length of 5 meters or 4 meters, etc. And then you're gonna do a retaining knot on each side of the anchor. A very simple overhand knot, like that, one on each side. And one on this other side. Overhand knot, okay? Once you have that, you have anchored the power line. Right, so now our line is anchored because we put it through, and there's a knot on each side of this hole. One here, the other one there. And basically that prevents the line from moving to the side. This is the anchor line, it's anchored now. So now we're going to anchor our primary rubber, so stage 1 rubber that has the pulley. I would advise you to, as you rig them here in this eye, depending on what pulley you use, to basically go in order, from the first, closer to the barrel, and so forth. From the anchor over there, we're gonna go straight, and we're going to the pulley on the top. This is the secondary pulley, so we're gonna go on the top of it. And now, on the muzzle, it's a bit fiddly, but you need to thread it from here through this hole here. So it goes into the spear. So again, from here, around this wheel, all the way through this hole here. I need 2 pairs of hands to do this, so I do it, and then I show you in the next video. Right, so now we just basically pass it through the primary pulley, and this is the time when you can choose how much pre-tension you want in your first stage rubber. So as you can see, from every centimeter that I pull at the top, 2 will move down. So, sorry, from every centimeter I pull here, half a centimeter moves down there. It's a 2-to-1 ratio. So in this system, I want a pre-tension of approximately 1.5 inch. So I want the rubber, the red rubber, to be all the time statically there. That gives me the pre-tension I need to keep all the rubbers in place. once I have selected the pretension, I very simple do an overhand knot in that point with a small eye, and from here you can attach your bridle or wishbone depending on where in the world you are. So remember, you pull, set up the pretension you want. Say for example you want 4 centimeters, mark the line here, and at that point you should have the knot for the bridle or wishbone. We'll show you in a second how it looks. Right, so here are the 2 overhand loops that I was telling you about before. Just an overhand, burn the end, that's it. Remember that this needs to be a neat knot, because every time you fire the gun, it's gonna land with a lot of force against the muzzle, okay? So make sure it's a good knot, it's well dressed, and you burn the ends properly. And you keep basically checking it periodically to see if it's actually fraying out, etc. There's a lot of force taking place there. So for the wishbone, we just use the same 3mm Dyneema. I just like to get like 7 centimeters, burn the ends into 2 balls, and then we can do a sheet bend or a double sheet bend knot, whatever you like for the wishbone or bridle. I just show you with this color, although I said before use the same color so it's not in your line of sight. I'm gonna use this green piece of Dyneema just to show you how it works. So you go there, around, pull it a bit, and that's it. That's all you need. And this end, you should tie it on the other end. You can probably hang a horse from that knot. It's super, super strong and it doesn't hurt the Dyneema. You put it through there and that's it. That's your wishbone, ready to go. Right, so that's the final product. 2 sheet bend knots, same black Dyneema. The reason why we do that is because obviously this part of the Dyneema is going to be sitting on your fin, on the notch of your spear, and it's actually going to wear out. So you need to be able to replace it. So that's why we do this. And now if you move to the rubber section of the gun, this is how it should look, nice and neat. The only thing we need to do now is just put the bridles between the secondary and third stage, so you can hook them in the power hook here, and that's pretty much it. Then we just need to put the spear in. Right, now we're finished with all the wishbones. So basically, this is how the gun will be unloaded. You have the first stage of the primary rubbers, the pre-stretched to 2 centimeters, 1.5 inch or whatever you decided to do. Normally I go for a couple of inches. Then we got the secondary stage, which is 14.5 mil. And the third stage, which is a softer 14 mil from Salvimar. So basically the gun is not loaded now, but this is how it will look if after shooting basically. And ideally what I do is just put only 1 centimeter of pre-stretch here, so when the gun shoots, these 2 bands will come undone like that, so they're ready to be loaded again. Because remember, you cannot load the gun if more than 1 pair of rubbers are locked in here. We'll explain that later. Now let's put the spear in and see how the final product looks. Right, so this is the final product. Now the bands are relaxed. If you're underwater, after firing, these 2 sets of bands, the secondary and third pair of bands, will be basically off the hook. That's why we calculated only 1 centimeter of pretension there. So remember, if you put more pretension after shooting, they will still be attached, and that's one more step to load it. If you give just 1 centimeter, especially with soft rubbers, they will come off, which means that the gun is now ready for loading. Now, this is highly not recommended to do. Don't do this at home, disclaimers and all that. Never load your guns out of water. We're gonna put the safety on. There's a wood board over there. And basically we're gonna load it to the first notch for you to see what the process is and see if it's as cumbersome as everybody says it is. So basically, 2 fingers on the bridle, push, hold it, put it in the notch you want, turn it around, second stage, and third stage. And that's how the bands sit under the gun. The pulleys should stay flush and they will contract up to here. If you see a grouper or a fish in a hole and you're not sure that you're not going to be shooting rocks, you can take off one pair of bands and depower it, as simple as that, and then go for it. And the line of sight is the best part of this gun. Obviously no recoil as well. That's how you build an invert roller 90cm spear gun. Thank you for watching. Leave the questions below. We'll also put a link to the list of materials that we use. If you have any doubts, just send me a message. And as usual, remember, this is not about subscriptions or sponsors or anything like that. It's just about transferring knowledge. I would really appreciate if you spot any mistakes I made in this build. Give us the feedback and we address it accordingly. Thank you. Stay safe.